All right. Well, Vivian, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about your film I saw last month at the A Night of Horror International Film Festival slash Midwest Weird Fest in Eau Claire. And the movie's Seance. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, great to have you here. Now, yeah, I'm a sucker for period horror thrillers. I don't think we get enough of them. So when I saw yours, I really dug it. Check out my review, folks, if you haven't already, where I talk about Seance. But my listeners may not be quite familiar with the film. So, in your words, could you give us a brief synopsis of what Seance is about?
Sure. Séance is a 1890s set Victorian Gothic thriller. It's a chamber piece. There's sort of four characters trapped in a house. There may or may not be the ghost of a child there. And it's very much in sort of this, I would say it's sort of like Turn of the Screw meets those like 1960s psychological thrillers like The Original Haunting
Mm.
from 1961 or even earlier Gaslight with Ingrid Bergman.
Oh.
So if you like those kind of like throwback psychological thrillers, I guess The Others with Nicole Kidman is sort of a more recent
Mm.
example. But it's that kind of a film. And, as these characters are sort of trapped in the house and they're dealing with ghosts or potential ghosts, there's also, an element of them maybe dealing with the ghosts of their past and regret and figuring out what they want to do with their relationships.
I liked it. It did have a bit of a almost a gothic romance type of feel to it as well, especially between our two characters who definitely have the history between them, Emma and George. Yeah, I always have mad respect for independent films that do period pieces because it's hard to, well, I imagine you're very much aware, it's hard to pull it off to be convincing. Because if you convince people that you're in that period, it kind of you've got a uphill battle. How did you go about did you do some research and that for costuming and this location? I was wondering what you went about to help capture that Victorian feel.
I think we were helped with a couple things. One, we never say like in the beginning of the film, there's no like Chiron that says like exactly what year it is. And so I sort of vaguely knew it was going to be like 1880s or 1890s, before the turn of the last century. But I'm sort of a big admirer of kind of movies like The Favorite, where yes, it's period, but you're kind of playing a little bit with sort of some of the costuming, some of the dialogue. And obviously, this is like a very different film, but as I was writing it, I was like less concerned with it being 100% like letter perfect accurate to an exact year, as opposed to capturing an atmosphere. So because of that, it gave us a little bit of freedom in terms of the locations and the costuming. So we couldn't be like, I mean, we couldn't be like 100 years off, I mean, that
Right.
wouldn't work. But I was sort of like open to it being a little bit, of a little bit of a fantasy element. Maybe not quite as much as like Crimson Peak, but just kind of a little bit of a playfulness to it in that sense. So, of course, I think that probably drove our costume designer crazy because she was like, "What?" Oh, like, and so eventually we were like, okay, 1892, 1892. We sort of picked a year. But yeah, the costumes are a little bit like there are some sort of things with the costumes that, if you literally looked at fashion designs from 1892, you may not see certain elements of the costumes represented. But yeah, it was just sort of capturing a quality, I suppose, and finding the exact pieces that were right for each character. So I had an amazing costume designer. Her name's Nina Fuller. She went to every single rental house all over Los Angeles because one of the big challenges to do period on a lower budget is like if this was Crimson Peak, all of the costumes would be built, right?
Built,
Like they
yeah.
were designed and sewn and created from scratch, but we couldn't afford that with our film. So poor costume designer had to go, literally went to every single rental house all over LA, which I went with her. And yeah, just looked at like every article of clothing that could possibly work. And the way that she pulled things together and tried things and ultimately landed on the looks, she spent many, many, many hours. So I was so happy with what she did. And then yeah, the same with the houses. Like again, the normal expensive way of doing this would be to build the interiors on a soundstage, right? That's what they did with the original The Haunting. That's what I think that's what they did with the others. That's what they did. I mean, that's what they did with Crimson Peak. Like that's what you do with these kind of movies. But once again, no, we had to find the houses. So we could not find in Los Angeles County, we could not find one house that had all the rooms we needed.
Sure.
So we actually ended up filming in three different
Oh,
houses.
wow.
Yeah. And then our brilliant production designer, Bree Jones, she had the unenviable task of having to kind of unite the houses together with wallpaper and tapestries and I think she did an incredible job. I mean, knock on wood, but so far no one has who has seen the movie has said like you didn't shoot in one house. I can tell, so I think we got away with it. But really it was just having those department heads be incredibly like flexible and like willing
Sure.
to try to like make it work as best they could. And so all credit to them. I couldn't have done it.
Well, you do pull it off. It does feel like one house, one gigantic house,
Oh, good.
which is what you want on this. But yeah, it definitely had the feel of a giant house, and with the furniture and everything as well. I think you captured it very well, enough to get the idea across for sure. I thought the costuming was gorgeous,
Yeah.
especially the dresses. Your dress and Scotty Thompson, who plays Emma, her dress, those were gorgeous.
They are really incredible. Yeah, and I mean, Nina did all kinds of like sort of little tweaks to them,
Mhm.
kind of make them really specific to our characters. Like I remember like the huge sleeves, she kind of kept coming in and like trying to like puff them up even more because we really wanted the character of Lillian to be like a doll, right? Like one
Right.
of the dolls
Mhm.
um that Hazel has in the room. Whereas with Emma, we wanted to be a little bolder. She has quite a low neckline in that dress, which is, she's a very modern woman for that era. And we wanted, the playfulness of like, her
Sure.
neckline, um, and sort of her jewelry also to kind of reflect who she is as sort of a woman ahead of her time. So yeah, again, Nina did a brilliant job.
And your guys were styling too, Connor and Gilon, the two gentlemen in here. They were looking quite dapper, as they would say. I liked their costume as well. Yeah, the whole costuming, everything just looked gorgeous.
So
Especially the way it was shot too, and your cinematography. Did you have a cinematographer in mind when you shot this? Because like I said, it looks amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a crazy story actually. So we had a different cinematographer originally, and then that person actually left the project 2 weeks before we were originally going to start shooting. Yeah, to go shoot a sketch comedy series. So
Uh,
um, sort of at that point, I wasn't sure what to do, and I decided to push the shoot. To bring on a new cinematographer just to kind of re-prep from scratch because it was really important to me to collaborate with a DP and let them have real ownership over this kind of a piece. And I got really lucky. I found an incredible DP named Joanna Coelho, and she's actually currently the DP on that Max series, The Pit, which
oh
couldn't
yeah,
be more different, but it just shows you her incredible range. The fact that she can do this film and this sort of like doc style medical drama. I mean, she really can do anything. But she was great. I mean, she's the best DP I've ever worked with. And kind of in reprepping the film from scratch with her, it was her idea to shoot on super Baltar lenses, which were perfect for
yeah.
this kind of piece. It made complete sense to shoot on vintage lenses from the 60s, given that that's the style we were emulating. And they have these beautiful like purple flares and like sort of the soft edges. So yeah, so it was her idea to use those lenses and yeah, I mean I just got incredibly lucky. She's brilliant. And at the end of the movie, she even suggested putting Vaseline on the lens. So
Oh,
there's moments like it's really, really kind of blurry. I won't like spoil it, but there's sort
shit.
of conversation happening where there's like some realizations going on.
Right.
And like that was her suggestion. And I couldn't believe it because for a DP to suggest that, that means she's giving up a huge measure of control in post-production because you
Right.
can't you can't go back and change that.
Yeah, that's actually what you captured. So there's no elements for you to rescue that at all.
No going back, like once you do that. So the fact that she was so confident and to kind of take a risk like that and get a little weird with it, I felt like got everything I wanted as a director. So I was very, very lucky to work with her.
Yeah, it just the look of it and everything felt even classic. The way you shot the rooms in that, because I imagine not all those rooms were large, but yet they felt large. They felt like large mansion rooms. So yeah, I mean everything just looked very sharp, and the whole feel of the film. Now it is a character driven piece for folks. While you do have your supernatural elements worked in here, this is very much a character piece. So how did you come on for your three co-hosts? Because you get to play Lillian, which I'll ask you about it a little bit. But how'd you get your other three folks involved?
Yeah, casting for this was a lot more stressful than casting my first feature because, with a piece like this where there really is only four characters. I mean, obviously we have some background artists joining us in various scenes, but really there's only four speaking roles, and I was going to play one of them. So then it was figuring out, okay, who are these other three actors who, number one, want to do this kind of a film, right? This isn't
Right,
necessarily everyone's cup of tea, and also can do it. Anytime you're doing period, that presents a challenge because there are some actors who energetically just don't, they always maybe come across as modern in
right,
their
right.
way they speak or their gestures. Like they sort of sometimes we won't name names, but there's sometimes actors who you see in something period and you're like, I just don't buy it. Like I just don't believe that they're from a different time. And so figuring out actors who believably are from the 1890s, and then also figuring out actors who have that kind of capability with language, right? Who
Hmm.
are incredibly
Right.
intelligent to understand wit. And I mean, I'm flattering myself that my script is witty, but like, understand, have a facility with language, which a lot of actors don't necessarily, but all of them had been actors for a long time. Most of them, I think, if not all of them, have a background in theater. And so when I met with each of them individually, like they just got it, they 100% got it. But yeah, it was stressful. I mean, I was really like, my God, if we don't work as a quartet, this film is not gonna, it's just gonna be like
Right.
annoying. Like so yeah, once I finally had the last person cast and I realized that, we were good, I hoped we would work together really well, I felt tremendous relief. But yeah, it was very stressful.
Yeah, you have to catch that Victorian dry wit, which people I don't think realize because everybody's trying to be proper, and yet you've got the tension, and people don't want to yell at each other, yet they want to stab at the other one verbally, and so you get some of those tension moments, especially like around the dinner table when you have that initial scene where they're around the very elegant dinner table. Everything is elegant in this film. I was watching the, just very impressed with everything with it, and especially your performances. Yeah, you four really got together well, especially Scotty Thompson
Mm.
was her performance. I was just like, holy, everybody was really great, and but her, for some of her scenes, I was just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, she's a really extraordinary actress.
Mhm.
She kind of going back to the challenge of casting is our casting directors were amazing, but they sent me a lot of tapes of actresses that I didn't feel were particularly, like, they didn't come across as particularly intelligent, right? So it was sort
Mhm.
of like, I don't believe that this is, you have to buy that, okay, she's of the period, but she's also a woman ahead of her time. So,
Right.
you know, she's got to be, you have to believe her as this like female novelist. And it was just really, really tough to find someone who conveyed that kind of intelligence. And Scotty, in real life, went to Harvard, and she's like, an incredibly, as well as a brilliant actress, she's like a very, very bright person. So, I mean, again, it was just like a relief when I saw her work, saw that she was, she had everything as an actress that you want, the intelligence and the vulnerability and the fight, like
Mhm.
she would give Emma give as good as she got, right, as Emma. And yeah, she's a really, really special actress. And every time I see the film, I notice new things in her performance.
Yeah, she definitely has a presence to her character in this film. That I'm sitting here watching this, going, "Oh, now you got to make a Mary Shelley film with her," because
Oh gosh. Do you know anyone who will fund it? I'll do it. Yeah, God.
but I also
We've made a lot, but yes,
yeah.
why not?
But I also, oh, excuse me. But I also really enjoyed your performance. And when it was one of those where you're directing and you're playing Lillian, whose grip on reality really starts to, too many spoilers, but starts to slip throughout the course of this night. How do you manage that? I've always find it interesting when you're directing and then you've got an emotional scene, like especially later on when we see Lillian just like, yeah, in that state of mind. I mean, how do you transition from that and then go, cut? Okay, no, now I want to go back and do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I think I mean, I guess like the way I think of it is just sort of there's just sort of like the two things are always occurring. So instead of it being like actor mode, director mode, actor mode, director mode, like I sort of think of it as like just kind of two layers of soil and like
Oh,
they're
sure.
both coexisting. And so
Hmm.
you're just kind of like, I don't know, kind of just ogling more. Like I think the more you can just sort of not think of it as any kind of switch or like abrupt transition, then the burden's off. I
Sure.
mean, I think it was probably weird for maybe some of the crew. Like I'm not sure, but I think they've probably been on enough sets now where it's more and more common these days for actors to direct. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure I mean, there was a director friend of mine who's brilliant. She also works on occasion as a boom op, and we needed a boom op to fill in for a few days, and so graciously she stepped in to do it. And but she kind of came in towards the end of the shoot, like for some of those more intense emotional scenes. And so I think she was like, at one point I was like, "Hey, how are you?" Like I like sort of finished
Yeah.
some crazy scene, and then I went over and was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And she's like, "I don't know how you're doing this." Like stir because like she just dropped in at like the climax of the movie. Um, but yeah, I think you and also you have a huge advantage if you're an actor and also the director because you understand like the shot list, you understand the setups, you understand what pieces you need from each, hopefully from each setup or that you think you'll need from each setup. So I find it like economical. I don't know.
Mm,
But it was also an extremely difficult shoot. Like it was so, we didn't have very much time. We were being really ambitious with the number of shots we were trying to do every day. Um, so I think if I had been playing a character that was like some sort of Zen Buddhist, like I'm not sure it would have worked as well. But because everything was quite stressful, um, and I was quite anxious during a lot of the shoot, it just worked,
sure,
because
sure.
it's sort of like, well, so's Lillian. So it was just like anything going on with me, I just was like, well, just like slide that characteristic into Lillian. So yeah, it just worked, I guess. But yeah, if I don't know if I was supposed to just play like a very, very calm, like unperturbed person, and maybe maybe it would not be good correct. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you did have your stress that you could just tap into for
Hmm.
it, so that I could see where that would be helpful in the motivation for it. And your two male leads, are impressive as well. I enjoy the difference between them, between that you have one more of the manly man and you have the other who is more of the kind man. Did you tap into people maybe that you knew when you were writing these parts for those roles, or was it just I want to write this type of character?
Yeah, no, nobody real that I know of. Although, who knows, things I'm sure filter through my subconscious. But I'm hoping nobody watches it and like recognizes themselves. But yeah, no, but I did like that idea of exploring sort of two very different kinds of masculinity. Like that was super interesting and appealing to me, and not something I've really explored before. And didn't explore anything really like that in my first feature, Scrap. Scrap is very much about like sort of one woman's journey. And there really isn't any significant relationships between two men in my first film. So yeah, it was such a pleasure. Like, one of my favorite scenes to direct was the conversation between the two men on the couch.
Mm,
And I think we had like, half a day to shoot that. So it was like the one time where we did have, it felt like almost all the time in the world, and we could really sit there and luxuriate, and and they don't have any blocking. Like they just
right.
sit and talk. And it occurred to me I don't think I had ever directed like two straight male actors talking about what it is to be men. I was like, this is great. Like I was like, I'm so like, and to like as a woman to direct that, like it was so interesting to me. So yeah, and they're both like again, really intelligent, really nuanced, thoughtful, well-prepared actors. Like they both came to explore. And so it was a real pleasure to direct them both.
Yeah, they play off each other really well in that scene, and you get the tension that you want in that scene between those two. I
Yeah, and
was,
like they found so much humor in it too, which was great. Because yeah, it's an inherently weird situation. It's like two men having a conversation who have both like been in love with the same woman. Like it's a very like, funny scenario. So yeah, they were
funny,
awesome.
awkward, can be tension filled, especially considering how George, we find out, is feeling towards
Up.
Emma had that. And then I liked the supernatural element in here that you didn't do too much. How much of that was conscious choice and how much was that budget choice?
Definitely all conscious choice. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, I mean, I mean, if I was doing things for budget, I mean, I wouldn't have written a period piece. I mean, let's be honest. But yeah, but no, I've always been a huge admirer of how in the original The Haunting, the 1961 The Haunting, not there's like
Yeah.
10,000 hauntings
Yeah,
now.
there's yeah.
But the OG, the 1961 Robert Wise Haunting, you never see the entity. Like you never see the thing that is in the house with them. It's only ever done with sound design and then a little bit of like they mess around with the door.
Hmm.
um, but you never see it. And yeah, it's like it's incredibly effective. And not that I don't love movies like Crimson Peak, right, where you have sort of the CGI ghosts and whatever. This I just really, really wanted to try to be one of those movies. The same with The Innocents, like it's very much about the sound design, the lighting, the mood, and about these sort of psychological horror films do a really good job of externalizing the emotions of the characters
Mm-hmm.
to the extent that the character doesn't really understand if they're sort of projecting or if they're actually hearing things. Like it really, it's an interesting genre to kind of, I think, explore like the interior life manifesting outside of characters. So that was all intentional. I wanted to kind of write a script that attempted to do that. And then just steal from the best movies. Gaslight, just Suspicion, just reference and steal from, the best of that genre and kind of mix it all up in a blender.
It's not stealing, it's paying homage. That's how
Homage, yes,
paying
yes.
homage, being influenced. There you go. Not stealing. You know, however you want to spit it. No, I recognize a number of those classic films. It just has that classic feel to it, and especially with it being character driven, it reminded me a bit of Hammer horror type
Mm,
stuff. To where same thing, very lavish sets, lavish costuming, usually character driven. There's some makeup worked in there, but usually it's people just acting off each other, and that's what you have here, and that was what I really enjoyed quite a bit, because you're still interested. I think your cast and all these elements that we talked about so far help you keep you interested in Seance, because if you falter in some of those spots, people may like check out or they start looking at other things instead of, oh no, we have this intriguing relationship between four people that I was like, okay, where is this going?
yeah, and I mean, hopefully by design, each scene, especially the beginning, you learn a new piece about each character, so that, ideally it's like an onion where as you're going through, you're sort of like, oh, like that, there's like little misdirects that hopefully
Mhm.
keep it engaging. But yeah, I think you also have to like these kind of more slow burn thrillers. Like, I'm sort of hesitant to even call it horror, although technically it is, because I think we expect horror these days to be like, it's like there better be a jump scare every 3.5 minutes, otherwise like, and I think we only have maybe like three, I think, in the whole film. So,
If that, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So you have to kind of um, be interested in that kind of,
Mhm.
psychological nuance. So, yeah, so it's either your kind of film or it's not. But I think also the people who go back and watch those older films,
Mhm.
I remember having a moment in our edit when I was kind of deciding on like sort of the tone and what takes for different performances I wanted to use. There was sort of a moment where I just kind of thought like, God, like, is it too much? Like, is it too melodramatic? Like, do I need to choose maybe takes that are a little bit more subtle with the acting? And then I went back and kind of rewatched a little bit of some of those older films and I was like,
Mhm.
no, we're good. Because you forget like the style of some of those, like, wow, like by today's standards. So I was like, you know what? No, we're like, we are incredibly subtle compared to those films. So I was like, we'll be fine. Um, but yeah, but thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I mean, there is melodrama in those other films, so it's fitting for the period. Again, it's something we associate with the period, that Victorian period. Everything is just seems like in most of the movies, everything's a little bit more something, a little bit more to it than just a casual conversation. Everything seems to have some kind of either underlying meaning or tension or something to it versus just having a casual conversation ever in almost any period piece. It's like you don't have a
Yeah.
whole lot of say extra in those films. And for you, I imagine too, you don't have that one because of the style and what you're going through, but also budget and indie films. Like you said, you shot on a short schedule. How long of a schedule did you have to shoot?
We shot it in 19 days, which, yeah. So even though it sort of takes place mostly in one house, we still
Right.
have, again, not to reveal it, but like the beginning and the end of the film take place on a beach.
Hmm.
And we had some complicated stuff. We had one day we had a child actress, we had underwater work, we had stunts, we had a jib and steady cam, and we were shooting different ways, different days, right? So like
Hmm.
sometimes we were on sticks, on a dolly, handheld. Like it was just every day was different. I think there was, it was rare that we could kind of just stop and then kind of pick back up the exact same way the next day. So that was, I think, part of the stress, although it was also a pleasure too, because I learned so much as a director on this film.
Hmm. Well, and that's what I was wondering is how do you go from scrap to this? Because they're completely different films.
Yeah. Well, so I actually wrote this in 2020 during lockdown.
Oh, okay.
And which now in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, this is a film that you would write when you were in
Yeah.
lock. Like it's, thematically, it's like, right. And I think that was part of it too. Like, I don't know about you, but during that time, I remember, so many people were, either falling in love with someone they were in lockdown with, or marriages were dissolving, or, people were breaking up or getting together, all kinds of um relationship drama was occurring because people were trapped in close quarters. So I think like that was lurking a little bit in the back of my mind. But actually, I wrote it in 2020 and then shot Scrap in the summer, towards the end of the summer of 2021. So before Scrap was even shot, the script was done and sitting there. And I was lucky that Scrap was successful enough that some of the investors were interested in like what my next project would be. And I was lucky enough to have this script. And then I kind of lied to myself. I was like, well, Scrap had like so many locations. Like this one's going to be like so easy. Like there's only one location really. So you kind of like lie to yourself that it's going to be so easy. But like once you rapidly figure out that like once you're trying to do anything period on an indie budget, it's like, like
Yeah.
you're good luck. So yeah, uh it was sort of a fast switch between the two, but I there's no way I could have written Seance wall on the festival circuit
Sure.
with scrap. Like it energetically, like it wouldn't really, have made sense. So, um, yeah, I'm just glad I already had the script ready to go.
you
Didn't
you would
didn't
have
feel
been you
a
would have been in a
switch.
different mindset than being locked down. Uh,
Yeah.
that would be a bit tough. Speaking of easy, I always ask this because it's always a trick. Was there one scene or one thing that you planned on shooting, not to give away too many
Mm.
spoilers, but one scene where you thought it was just going to be, well, this is going to be just hell to shoot. This is going to be really difficult. But then it just like went off without a hitch, like water. It's like, wow, okay, we nailed that.
I think I was a little nervous about oh God, now I'm like, how do I talk about this without revealing okay, well, the stunt in the movie, there's
Oh,
a
okay. Hmm.
big impactful stunt. Um, and I was nervous because I had never really I'd done little things like stunt things, like slaps and kicks and
Sure.
that kind of thing, like basic hand-to-hand combat stuff. And like obviously in theater school, we did, rapier and dagger or whatever. But like in terms of like having a stunt coordinator and a stunt person come in to do something that is potentially dangerous, this was the first time, and I trusted them. I knew, we
Right.
had found someone great to do it. But yeah, it made me nervous because I was just like, oh, well, number one, I was, wanted to make sure they were safe and everything. But I was more nervous that it just wasn't going to work, right? That it
Right.
was going to look stupid or silly or like not believable. And so, yeah, I think just uh the stress of that, and no one on our team had done this particular stunt before, like none of the
Sure.
producing. So it wasn't like I had anyone who could reassure me, like, so I was a little bit like, oh God. And and then again, you get lucky because our stunt coordinator, like he's got an IMDb list a mile long. So like this is like kids play to him, he's like, what? I'm not on fire, like so it's I mean, this is like for them, it's like nothing. So, yeah, we did it. And then I looked, we had multiple camera angles. So the person did not have
Right.
to
Yeah.
done too many times. And we looked kind of quickly at the footage before we moved on. And it was great. I was like, oh, thank God. It was like such a relief. 'Cause, at that point, there would not have been a way to change it, like there's
Right.
not going to be another way to make that happen without a stunt. So I was like, oh God. But yeah, it was great. And also it was just such a good reminder that like when you hire someone who's really, really good at their job,
Mhm.
they deliver.
Well, yeah, and it's a key scene too. So you out of all your scenes, you want to nail that one for sure because it's a key scene with that stunt.
Yeah. And
And
if it didn't work, it's like, again, it's like, what the hell would we have replaced
yeah.
it with? Like, now
What are
people
you
watch it, they're gonna
what are
be
you
like, what the
building up
hell?
to?
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
you
Like,
building up to? Just eh.
yeah.
just to,
If
just
it
to
didn't
trade
work,
words.
yeah, if it didn't work, I mean, honestly, I would have had to like significantly rewrite the script and we would have probably
Right.
had to do a couple days of reshoot. So, and it just would, yeah, it would have been a horrible thing. So, yeah, thank God it worked. And yeah, other things that I think worked better as well was like sort of the underwater thing. I'd never
Mm.
shot underwater before, but similar to the stunt piece, we had a underwater camera operator who has tons of experience shooting underwater, and the stuff that he was able to capture looks beautiful. And again, as soon as I saw the footage that we were getting, I was like, oh, thank God. Um, so yeah, there was just like a lot of, relief when anxiety and then relief, anxiety and then relief. That was sort of every
That's the nature of filmmaking, I think, is anxiety and relief.
day. Although, it's funny, have you seen that like on like TikTok or whatever, like that behind the scenes footage of like Tom Cruise, he's like riding a motorcycle off a cliff
Hmm.
and then like parachute. No, no, I'm sorry. He falls
He
for like
glides. Yeah, he's got one of them
a
squirrel
good chunk,
gliders. Yeah.
and then I guess glides
Yeah.
somehow to safety. And I was like, well, that they probably had more anxiety than I did. Like that all those kind of stunts. I'm like, wow, just, you're like, well, all right, well, if it doesn't work, he's dead. So, uh, Nothing quite that intense.
Well, if we don't get the shot, he's dead. So we're we don't have
It's
any
like, yeah,
criticism. Yeah.
little whatever it's called, like wings don't
Yeah.
deploy. Just killed Tom Cruise. So other than that, it's fine.
You could be the
Oh,
director that killed Tom Cruise. There you go. That gets you a lot of work later on, I hear, in Hollywood.
yeah, I don't think so.
I
Oh
don't, I
God,
don't think so either.
I think
But
everybody's done.
so how long did it take for you to put it together? Because you said you had 19 days to shoot, and then in post, was it a long post production? Because you don't have a huge amount of effects and other things going on, but you still have that. So how long did that take for you?
It was longer than Scrap, only because, well, it was also, I think, longer because Scrap was doing festivals the entire post-production period of Seance. So I'm someone who really always wants to be in the room. Like I want to be, I mean, obviously I give my editor time to do their
Sure.
assembly, but like I want to be in the room with them as we're fine-tuning cuts and like same with color grade and same with sound edit and sound mix and all of those post-production processes. Like I just find it way more efficient. Like I hate giving notes on Frame.io. Like I hate remote notes. It always takes forever and like you can never explain over an email exactly what you mean.
Sure.
Um, and so much of the process is tweaking things, until you take it too far, then you realize, okay, that doesn't work, take it back. Like, so, and that was just difficult when I was on the road, constantly going to film festivals.
Right.
So I think even the edit took us 5 months, whereas I think the edit for Scrap, um, I mean, I think we had a pretty decent assembly cut within a month of wrapping.
Mhm.
Um, so the edit for Scrap probably only took us maybe like maybe 2.5 months. So this took double just because I just was gone. So yeah, so luckily everyone involved in the post process was like really patient with me um I think also it was maybe a good thing to have more time so that I could be more thoughtful,
Mhm.
Hope I don't know, maybe they'll disagree. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a different process for sure.
Yeah, I imagine switching from festival focus for Scrap, and then you had to switch your brain back to okay, back to Seance, back to the Victorian film. Where were
Yeah.
we?
And also a film like this, this is my first foray into the genre world, into anything
Mm,
horror related. So I didn't realize, I mean, I knew sound design was going to be a huge component of this, but
sure.
I don't know if I realized like how much. So I worked with the same post-production sound person, Ryan Gottschall, on Scrap as I did on this, and he's so talented. And yeah, we had to spend like a lot more time working on the sound edit for this because again, with horror, it's like you are just trying to figure out like, is that scary? Is that cheesy? Like, do I like this sound effect? Do I like that sound effect? Like, and like stingers and the
Hmm.
world of sort of like ambient sounds. And it's so hard to it's so hard to feel out like when is it effective and when is it not? And it
Sure.
can be effective too. Like, maybe he would be like, oh, what about this? And play something. And I'd be like, oh, I don't like it. But he'd be like, oh, I think it's great. And then it's like, wait, is it great? Like you're sort of only waiting for somebody else to listen to it who's like hasn't listened to the scene a million different ways. Um, so yeah, that aspect of doing horror, like when you first start looking at the footage, it's funny.
Right.
It's not scary at all. Like it's hilarious. If people are like, it's a lot of people like turning and then there's like clip nothing, no sound, so it's like, it looks really stupid. Uh, and so I have so much respect now for, Blumhouse and all of those
Sure.
like production companies that just are able to churn these out because I think the post people who really specialize in horror, um, like really have this down to a science. It's not easy,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, like it's all post production. I mean, really.
Yeah. Some of the best horror out there have the best sound design, for sure. Especially when
Yeah.
you're working on limited budget, especially when you're working with Supernatural, your sound design really, as a viewer, I'm watching it. Some films they'll catch me to where I'm like, wow, that sound design was just like amazing because like yeah, like you said, without the sound, you just have people turning their heads and their eyes get big, and you're just like. Why are
And
they
it just
getting, yeah, why is that happening? What?
yeah. Well, and also like every, jump scare, like it only works because of the sound that accompanies, whatever it is, like the sudden movement or like the, camera pan, whip pan, whatever it is you're doing. It doesn't work without some kind of sound to like, create that moment. And it's really the sound that allows the image, I think, in these movies to have an impact on the audience's body, like physicality. So, yeah, I mean, like even silent horror films had to have musical accompaniment, right? Like otherwise, it doesn't work. It doesn't work without any kind of audio.
Yeah, I just recently watched for another podcast the Phantom of the Opera, the original.
Oh yeah, ooh,
Uh, y-
one T.
yeah, the silent film, and that's got the music, and it's got to be energetic or something creepy, so you have that effect and that energy, and that's what you have here for sure. You have your sound design and your look to help create that atmosphere, but you also have your music as well. Did you have someone picked out for your score as well? Because the score for me, I'm a big score guy. I mean, you could tell my physical media, but I love movie scores, and this one really fit. And I think that can just add that extra punch to whatever you're doing. Did you have someone in mind for that? How'd you go about with the score?
Yeah, so unfortunately, again, it's like, a film, if we had had a bigger budget, I would have loved to have been able to hire one person to kind of do the entire score. But what we ended up having to do was sort of hire people to do different bits
Mhm.
and, kind of give them, some of it was money, some of it was availability. You're kind of like, when you're not paying people a lot of money, you're working around their schedule. So it was sort of just trying to figure out like what are some instruments, what are some styles. When we edited it, we had temp music that we pulled, that we tried to get as close as possible to, which now I can't remember some of the. I know we used a lot of music from, gosh, that Daniel Radcliffe movie, The Woman in Black.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hmm.
We stole some of a lot of their instrumental music for our temp score. I think we stole a little bit of music from the others. And so you're trying to find music that is sort of similar
Hmm.
tone and instrumentation that you want your final product to have. And so that was helpful because then, when like I remember there was like one sort of key sequence that I was asking somebody to replace. It was basically like kind of easy for them because they understood like the music that we'd already put already had kind of like the slower part and then the faster part that was already matching well with the image. So they already understood kind of like where the build would go. And then it was just sort of them coming up with like a melody and their, slightly their own flavor to it. But yeah, everybody who contributed to the score did a really, really good job of like trying to find to write a piece that would fit seamlessly into the
Hmm.
whole. And then again, my sound editor, he also edited all the music together and did a really, really good job. And what's interesting is there are certain moments in the film now where people have been like, oh, the score at that moment. And I'm like, oh, it's so interesting because that's actually not score. That's sounds that are like weird sounds like oh God, what are they called? What are those bowls called?
Oh yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
My
the
God, crystal bowl? No, that's
yeah.
not right. Is that right? I don't know.
I-
Um but like there's that in
Sure.
in the film and people are like, "Oh, is that like what instruments?" And I'm like, "It's like a crystal bowl sound." So yeah, so I really think the person who pulled all these things together was really our sound and music editor, Ryan Gottschall. Like I think without him, it wouldn't have worked. And I think
Mhm.
also for this kind of film, you need the sound and the music to be one kind of piece. Um, I'm not sure how this would have worked if like we completely separately had it composed and then kind of had
Sure.
eventually have to be like brought together and edited together. And then there was music that we stripped out. There were moments where I was like, it's so, I don't think maybe this part there, maybe there's no music. Maybe this is just a moment of silence. I personally just feel a lot of times like movies are overscored. So
I
we
think I
pulled
think I think
two.
movies are just over sound designed in general. I mean, for me being a score guy, nowadays it's like there was a score in there.
Right. Yeah, maybe in the mix it's like buried often or yeah, and it's hard because it's like you do. certain instruments can be helpful in terms of like guiding the audience along the character's arc. But then, we've all seen those movies where they're like, oh God, here we go with the like sad piano or like the swelling violins. And you're like, we're all supposed to be sad. And, if it feels unearned or it
Right.
doesn't match, the emotion of the characters, like again, that's a really, really tricky thing. So yeah, I would say the real growth for me, I mean, as well as like all of the challenges that came with pre-production and production, but I learned a lot doing post-production on this project.
Well, I always tell people, because I've been covering indie films for a long time. I fell in love with them about 12 years ago. But when I have a discussion, I'm like, even the visuals can be a little off, but if your audio is off
Yeah.
on any film, like, invest in better audio equipment, if nothing else, because I've seen so many people get taken out of a film, and even myself, when you've got great visuals, but the audio is just not the quality you need it, and so it's more distracting, I think, sometimes than say if your visuals are off.
Yeah,
Um,
I honestly, that's why like when you find a good production sound person, who's going to be doing the production sound like recording like on set, especially if you have someone who has a great boom op that they've worked with and they have a good relationship, good rapport. It's like just keep using them, like we again, it's like just like I reused Ryan Gottschall for post sound for both Scrap and Seance. Rob Fillmore, who did my sound mix on set for Scrap, I brought him for Seance as well, and so like he's just really, really good. And, and when we were on the beach, we filmed that at Crystal Cove State Park in Orange County, and it's not that far from the John Wayne Airport. So like there's a lot of airplane stuff. There's a
Plain,
lot of
yeah.
old for plane, there's like there's all kinds of that stuff. And so I think I really relied on him um to just make sure that and he's dealing with seagulls, he's dealing with waves crashing, and it's like, you're nervous. You're like, are we gonna get the clean dialogue? Like, this is a very important, these are so important things. But yeah, he's, if someone's in the LA area and they're looking for a sound mixer, yeah, he's incredible. And I whatever my third feature is, like I want to keep using these people if they, if they're not sick of me. You see that kind of loyalty a lot in indie film because once you can rely on someone, um, and they're willing to kind of get in the trenches with you, like you never want to let them go.
hmm Yeah, I notice a lot of crews end up traveling around together, even more so now than I think it used to be. It seems to be very like you see the same names together a lot. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned with Plane because I happen to be a script supervisor on someone I know, their film, and it was supposed to be a remote barn, but it was right next to a busy road. So the sound guy would be like, "Oh wait, car." And you'd wait
Yeah,
for
yeah.
and you'd have to wait for like 30 seconds. I don't think people don't understand just how far sound travels. So you're just like
Yeah.
waiting and waiting and okay,
Well,
go.
and yeah, and thank God, because like, he's picking up things that we can't hear with our
Right.
human ears. Like it seems fine to us, but then he's like, no, no, like this is gonna mess you up later. That's so great. Yeah. Well, and also my script supervisor, Carissa McQueen, met her on Scrap and dragged her into Seance. So yeah, hopefully these people will all keep working for me.
Well, if they came back for a second one, I think they will for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and what would you say is your biggest influence? I mean, getting into filmmaking. Every time I ask an indie filmmaker, "Hey, give some advice to someone," they say, "Do something else."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they say because it is such a challenging job
Mm.
or whatever. So, what would you say was your influences to get into this?
Gosh, I mean, I think just, I started my career as an actor and I had done that for a really long time. And I think like not every actor has ambitions to direct, but I think just by nature of being on a lot of sets, um, you sort of start to learn a lot by osmosis. You watch other directors, you're directed by a lot of directors. Some are
Hmm
very good, some are not good. Um, and I think, after a while, it's normal to want to have, I think, more control over the story that's being told,
hmm
especially I think one of the biggest influences is like wanting to like protect the story, protect the film, make sure that, we're trying to deliver a product that's as high quality as we can, given our budget
Right.
limitations. Because I think for, as an actor, I had been on projects that I thought could have been 20% better with just a few, maybe better leadership, better planning, whatever it
Sure.
is. So, um, you sort of like look around and you're like, well, yeah, I could do this. Maybe I think I could maybe do this like at least as good as that person's doing it. Um, but I think, yeah, it's a real, I think also too, like, my background was in theater,
Mm,
when I was an undergrad, and I love ensembles. Like I love working with a group of people. So directing is such a privileged position because you get to work with everyone.
right.
Where like they might only get to work with like production people only work with production people, right? Or post people might only work like editors don't get to work with anyone, right? Except the director, producer, sometimes AE, and so like, but the director, you get to go on the whole journey. Like you get to go, which is rough because you can be on one project for like years and years and
Right.
years, until you're like, oh my God, why did I even want to do this? But like, but yeah, but like you are the sort of the one role where you get this like really you get this incredible vantage point to see these amazing artists and technicians be incredibly good at their job. And
Mm.
you get to learn from all these people. So yeah, so it's been, and I think once you do it, if you really truly like want to do it and you're curious about it and you love working with DPs and you love like visual storytelling, once you do it once, it's like I think it's like a full-on drug. I think you're like
It's a
I don't
drug. It's either, nah, I think I'll just do acting again, or man, that was solid. I would need more.
yeah.
I need more.
No, I think you're just like, I think there's like no going back. I mean, maybe there are people who direct one thing and then they're
Mhm.
like, that wasn't for me, but I don't really know of any. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know. Maybe that they're like one and done, or like it
Sure.
was just a bad experience. That was never. Um, but I think, yeah, I mean, if you're in this business because you feel like you're a storyteller and you're like drawn to like creating narratives, that's like the ultimate position to be in as far as I'm concerned, Um, it's such a creative position. It's so fun and I mean I'll never like stop acting and writing and obviously I produce to help these projects get made. But I think of all of those, directing I think is probably the most satisfying because you get to have your fingers in all the pie.
Well, and then you get to see the final product, and you realize that I helped put this whole thing together from start to finish. It wasn't just that's my part there, which you can be happy about, but this, yeah, it's an undertaking. I have mad respect for folks who direct for sure. And how tough is that though? Because some folks who do their directing and acting also want to edit. So because it's their baby, and I fully understand that. But at the same time, I've seen some films that go way too long where you're just like, man, they could have, if they would have probably had an editor go, yeah, we got to take this part out, it would have been better. How tough is that to kind of hand this baby over to someone to cut up and go, no, we can't do this scene.
I'm like I feel really strongly that if you are, I mean, unless your background is, similar to like my background
Right.
as an actor, I feel like unless you came up as an editor, and then maybe transitioned into directing, but even then, I just feel like you have no business, editing, especially. Like I have edited shorts and I would
Sure.
edit a short just because, especially if it's very pretty
Right.
straightforward, there's only so many ways to screw that up. But I think it's crucial to have an editor. I think an editor is such a godsend because you have someone who was not on set and you kind of wash up on the shores of an edit bay and you're sort of bedraggled and your spirit is broken after production and you get to encounter fresh eyes. And
Mhm.
if these are eyes of someone who has been through this many, many times, um, I worked with the same editor on Scruff as I did on Séance. His name is Toby Yates, and he was an exceptional editor for me because he was like 20 years older than me and had so much more experience, but also was really collaborative and so respectful. So I got the best of both worlds. I got him to be my peer and my friend and my equal, but then I also got him to be my mentor. And like why wouldn't why wouldn't I want that, you
Mhm.
know? When we encountered problems in the edit or just difficulties or something wasn't working, um, he had so many years to reference. Like so many other projects would be like, yeah, I ran into this, 10 years ago, and we kind of did this for the fix, and but I don't know if you want to try that, or we could just do that. Like, and also he had no ego. So there was like a moment where a scene wasn't working. We were both kind of stuck, and he encouraged me to take some of the footage home and play with it myself, and was like, just mess around with it and like see if anything comes of it. Which was, incredibly encouraging and generous. And as long as your editor is not like some weird egomaniac or someone who's trying to like impose their will upon you, if you're lucky enough.
Use your footage to tell their story.
Yeah, as long as it's not a weird, doesn't turn into anything weird.
Right.
But if you have an editor that is truly a professional and exceptional at their work, there's no, other than your DP, the two people who are really going to be your allies as a director are your DP and your editor. Those will be your biggest relationships, creative relationships on a feature. And yeah, I would never, I mean, who knows? Well, like maybe 30 years from
No,
now.
I find the best indie films are ones where directors or whatnot said, "Yeah, I gave it to someone else to watch and take notes, or I gave someone else the edit."
Yeah,
And
you get to a point too where, yeah, I mean, even the editor, you'll get to a point when you're circling picture lock where you're like, is it done? You're like neither of you have any objectivity anymore. So
right,
at that point, absolutely, like you kind of have to send that out to like the brain trust,
right,
and get another set of fresh eyes on it, and get a lot of different people's notes who are just seeing the story for the first time, who have not read the script, who were not on set, and who have not been in the edit room. So
right.
yeah, like I think having those people as well. But I agree. I think I've seen some indies that have been edited by um, the people who directed it or acted in it or whatever. And I agree. I think it's almost never as good a film as you sense it could have been.
Right.
Um, yeah, so like I'm like, no, like the director editor relationship is so important, I think, to like the success of a feature. That no, I will never not work with the editor on a feature.
And speaking with the same, working with the same people again, what's next for Vivian Kerr? Where are you going from here?
No idea. So I do not have a script
Hmm.
hanging out like I did with Seance. So right now, Scrap is available, just became available in December on VOD. So people can rent it and buy it on iTunes, or not iTunes, Apple TV now. And
It's on Amazon too, I saw.
Yeah, Amazon, Fandango at home, all of those platforms. So I'm still kind of pushing Scrap's launch and doing festivals with Seance. We're going to have our international premiere at Fanispoa in Brazil this weekend, actually. I am not in Brazil,
No,
but
you're not in Brazil. I was
yeah,
like, oh wow.
no, unfortunately, I couldn't make it work. But that's a great festival. It's like the biggest genre festival in South America. So very grateful for us to have our international premiere there. And then we have a few more festivals coming up, which we're going to announce soon, including one here in LA. So yeah, and then Seance will be doing festivals probably until the rest of this year. And um, although I like the idea of maybe getting it distributed in October, it might take longer than that. So hopefully by the end of the year, Sans will be on video on demand as well. And then
That
yeah,
that
and then who knows? I'm contemplating some ideas and writing some things, and I would love to have before the end of the year, I'd love to have a third project kind of in the works.
Well, this has been a pleasure, Vivian. Where can people follow you and keep up with your work, and where Seance is going to be showing next, and all that fun stuff?
Sure. Let's see. People can follow me on Instagram at Vivian Kerr. And my company is called Ruedangeau, Ruedangeau. And we're also on Instagram at Ruedangeau. And all these projects and their various websites and screening dates and all of that are all on ruedangeau.com.
Fantastic. Well, so check it out, folks. If it's playing at a festival near you, Séance, Vivian Kerr, and Scrap, that's out now. I didn't get a chance to watch all of it. I watched some of it. I did rent it, but I wanted to try to. It's just schedule didn't work out. But what I
Right.
saw, yeah, they're two different films, but two very enjoyable ones, and this has been a pleasure. So check it out, folks, and links and stuff and all that will be in the body of this video. So thank you very much, Vivian.